Good evening to all. Welcome to this 48th lecture session of the course Computational Fluid Dynamics. In the previous lecture, we have completed our discussion on FVM discretization of scalar transport equation on unstructured grids. Okay. Today we will specifically see how to treat the coupling between pressure and velocity on unstructured meshes. Okay. So this is one very important perspective. So remaining procedures are almost similar to those we have employed in scalar transport equation, but the major difference comes in treatment of pressure velocity coupling. Okay, so let me show you some of the different strategies which can be employed for pressure velocity coupling in unstructured meshes. So the first arrangement over here is corresponding to a staggered grid. Okay, so this type of arrangement is called as staggered grid arrangement. So we are having nothing but some 90-degree bend. So in this 90-degree bend, if you see these are our nothing but different control volumes, and all these control volumes are nothing but unstructured control volumes. Okay, and centroid of each control volume is considered as our scalar grids. Okay, so these are nothing but our scalar grid points or scalar nodes, and then at certain distance, that is nothing but the phase boundaries of this control volume. At the center of the phase boundaries, we are having node locations for velocities. And over here, if you see, if this is my x y coordinate system, Cartesian coordinate system, so we can see that our velocity components which we are estimating, actually these are nothing but aligned with the Cartesian coordinate system. So you can see this is my u velocity. So all these phase centers are nothing but u velocity cells, and these over here are nothing but v velocity cells. Okay, so in this type of formulation, one thing we will be having, while we have to estimate the fluxes which are actually moving across these phases, every time for that we have to consider the velocity vector in the normal direction. So whatever velocity vector we will be having, u vector, we have to actually multiply it with unit normal vector in the outward direction in order to obtain the velocities normal to the phase boundary. Okay, because these are the velocities which actually participate in the discretization of the convection term. Okay, then second arrangement we are having over here is something which is called as contravariant arrangement. Okay, so in this contravariant arrangement, what we are having, you can see that we are having the similar arrangement to that of structured grid. However, the key difference is that over here velocity vectors are not aligned to the Cartesian coordinate system. Rather, velocity vectors are actually normal to the control volume boundaries. Okay, so in terms of computations or discretization of the equations, this works well, but here difficulty comes in terms of obtaining the governing equations on this type of coordinate system. Okay, so over here what we are having, we are considering that velocities are actually normal to the phases of the control volume. So while we have to obtain the governing equations, there also we have to consider the similar coordinate system. Okay, here our actually to each control volume normal, we are having some governing equation. So obtaining that is actually very difficult task. Okay, another thing which we can do in case of unstructured meshes is to use the collocated arrangement. Okay, so in case of collocated arrangement, what we do, we actually consider all our grid, all our flow parameters on the same node points. For example, this is the centroid of the control volume. So at this only we are having scalar values stored as well as the velocity values in x and y direction. And in this also the velocity value actually we are measuring in the Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, so this is the third arrangement, collocated arrangement. It is With the second arrangement, one computational difficulty I told you is the conversion of governing equations. With the staggered type arrangement also there is some difficulty, like we have to have different control volumes, and obtaining these arrangements is actually very difficult. Okay, so what we will be trying to do in the present in this particular lecture, we will be mainly focusing on collocated arrangement for having further pressure velocity coupling computations in unstructured grid. However, because we know that with collocated grid there is some difficulty of having some wrong pressure computations when we are having highly oscillating pressure field, and moreover when it is mimicking with the pressure checkerboard like pressure field. Okay, so how to avoid that particular difficulty while doing the computations, that we will try to see now. Okay, so this is my, say, one-dimensional staggered arrangement. So you can see this is one-dimensional structured mesh, and this is our staggered arrangement, because I am considering that this centroid of the element is actually a scalar node, and phase centers of this scalar node are containing the velocity data. Okay, so for this type of arrangement we are having governing equation. Like if I want to discretize the x momentum equation, so discretization of x momentum equation will be something like this. Say I am finding this particular velocity, so it will be APE. So I am referring to AP as coefficient corresponding to east face of this P node. Okay, UE equal to summation A and B UNB plus PP minus PE into AE plus B. So that is something over here. If you see, nothing but this gradient between P and E is actually responsible for this flow velocity at the cell face UE. Okay, now if we take the collocated arrangement, in case of collocated arrangement I will be having this as my node point P, and velocity is also estimated at the same node point. Okay, so under this condition my discretized form of x momentum equation, it will be looking something like this, where we are having AP P into UP. So we are measuring this velocity at point P only, that will be equal to summation A and B UNB plus, now while we will be calculating the gradient, so obviously gradient at this point I can write as pressure at east face minus pressure at west face divided by delta x. So which will be finally coming as, because minus, generally we are having minus del P by del x term in our momentum equation. So after using this finite linear interpolation and then just outside putting the positive sign, it will be becoming PW minus PE. Okay, times AP plus BP. So now what we are having, if I have to find out this value PE minus PW, this PE minus PW will be nothing but equal to, if I have to estimate this pressure PE, I don't have the value of pressure known at this point. However, I have value of pressure known at this point and this point. So if I use linear interpolation at this point, I can simply say that pressure will be nothing but arithmetic average of pressure known at point P and E. Okay. Similarly, at this point, I can say arithmetic average of these 2 points as my pressure at point W. So by this, I will be getting PW minus PE by 2. So if I substitute this PW and PE over here, I will be finding 1 by 2 PW minus PE. Okay. And UP, if I have to calculate, so I have nothing but divided with the coefficient AP over here on both sides. And generally what we do, we consider that this AP by AP is nothing but DP. So by using this particular formulation, I can write UP equal to summation A and B UNB plus BP by APP plus DP by 2 into PW minus PE. So till this point, everything is clear, or is there any doubt?
Sir, still in this formulation, there will be the issue of checkerboard.
Okay, that I'll be discussing in the next slide. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now, let us consider, so the way I have estimated this velocity at point P, using this formulation. Similarly, I can estimate the velocity at point E also. Okay, so this is nothing but similar arrangement is given when we are calculating the velocity at node point E. Okay, so this is the UE. Now let us consider that we are having this highly oscillating checkerboard pressure field. So in case of checkerboard pressure field, say this is 50, this is 100, 50, 100, so like this. So now if you see, in the previous equation, we are having this dp by 2 into pw minus pe. So pw minus pe over here will be becoming 100 minus 100 as 0. Similarly, while we are calculating ue, we are getting pee minus pp. So pee and pp is having once again 50-50 value. So this is something which is actually having the issue. Okay, so that's why what we will be doing, instead of using this simple formulation for this simple linear interpolation for discretization of the pressure term, we will be using some special interpolation practice. Okay, so in this special interpolation practice, what we will do basically, we will try to use some higher order pressure term. Okay, so how to use that higher order pressure term, let me just explain you over here. Okay, so what I am trying to do over here, I am considering that I have velocities known at this point P, E and W, because these are my node points where velocities are stored. But when I will be using the discretized form of continuity equation, then I have to estimate how much flux is actually entering and how much flux is leaving. So in order to estimate the fluxes, I should know the value of velocity at east face and I should know the value of velocity at west face, W. Okay, so in order to estimate these velocities at phase centers of the control volume, I can use this higher order interpolation scheme, where I'll be writing the velocity as nothing but, you can see, if I have to estimate velocity at this point, I can write one thing that can be arithmetic average of up plus ue by 2. So up plus ue by 2 plus 1 by 2. Now I have told you the definition of dp. So dp was nothing but, sorry, this I have to write as de. So dp was ap divided by ap, and this de will be ae divided by ape. So this, knowing the definitions of d, what I am writing, half of dp plus de times pp minus pe. So now you can see, when I am estimating the velocity at this face, east face, I am writing it pp minus pe. So it means I am writing this gradient only as responsible factor for having this velocity ue at the face center. And apart from that, I am also adding some additional term. This 1 by 4 dp into pw minus pe minus 1 by 4 de into pp minus pee. So now you can see that while we are actually calculating this velocity, while we are discretizing the pressure gradient dp by dx, we are using the participation of a large number of nodes. As you can see, we are having involved pp, pe, pw and pee. So we are having at least 4 nodes involved over here. So this is nothing but called as higher order approximation for pressure. Okay. So now in this higher order approximation, what we are trying to do, this particular very high pressure gradient is actually responsible for the occurrence of this velocity. However, because in the surrounding, once again, we are having some adverse pressure gradient, which will try to diminish the value of velocity. So in order to account for that factor, so that we do not get any velocity oscillation into our solution, any oscillations into our solution, we are having some additional term over here. And this particular additional term is actually, this leads to damping of oscillations in the solution, and we get nothing but our proper stable solution. Okay, so how this particular term is obtained, let me try to explain subsequently. So now I have written that one approximation I have taken over here. I have considered that, say, dP is equal to dE equal to D. So if I take this approximation that my area and coefficients are same, under that condition area by coefficient ratio will be same, and I can write dP equal to dE equal to D. So under this condition, UE will become UP plus UE by 2, and here in place of half dP plus dE, it will be becoming 2D. So it will become simply PP minus PE minus 1 by 4 D into PW minus PE minus 1 by 4 D into PP minus PEE. Okay. So now if I take this D common in all the pressure term, I will be finding that UP plus UE by 2 into D by 4 of 4 times PP minus PE, and after doing some algebraic manipulations, this particular term will be becoming D by 4 of PEE minus 3PE plus 3PP minus PW. Okay. Now, let us calculate del cube P by del X cube at east face. So I can write it as nothing but del by del X of del square P by del X square at east face. So del by del X of del square P by del X square at east face, I can simply write as 1 by delta X of del square P by del X square at capital E minus del square P by del X square at this capital P. So is this point clear how I have written this particular formulation?
Yes, sir.
So this is nothing but del by del X is the derivative which I have, and if I consider this entire term over here as, say, psi, so I am calculating basically nothing but del psi by del X at, and this psi is actually, I am trying to estimate this entire term at east face. So if I do so, I can write it as psi at point next to the east face. So that is psi E minus psi P divided by delta X. So that is what I have written, 1 by delta X, and psi I can replace with del square P by del X square. Okay, so at E minus P. Now, if I have to find out del square P by del X square at east face using east node using central difference approximation and second order accurate scheme. So what I will be getting, can you tell me? Del square P by del X square at node point E.
PEE plus PP minus 2PE divided by delta X square.
Yes, so that is what I have written over here. So you can see this del square P by del X square is written as PEE minus 2PE plus PP by delta X square. Similarly, I have written del square P by del X square over here. Okay. Now I can take this 1 by delta X cube common, and I can write this as PEE minus 3PE plus 3PP minus PW. Okay. So now if I just keep this thing on one side, so I can write this entire equal to nothing but del cube P by del X cube times delta X cube. So this delta X cube I am taking to the left hand side. Okay. So I can simply say that while I am writing this approximation for east face, I am writing it U east equal to nothing but UP plus UE by 2 plus D by 4 del cube P by del X cube into delta X cube. So this del cube P by del X cube is nothing but third order pressure gradient. Okay. So what we are trying to do, in order to avoid the checkerboard, in order to avoid the oscillations of the solution due to the highly oscillating checkerboard pressure field, in case of collocated grid, while we are estimating the value of phase centered velocity, we are not considering the first order gradient of pressure, rather we are using third order of pressure gradient. So this third order pressure gradient will be actually helping us in avoiding the oscillations in the solution. So the detailed formulation, this first term is responsible for occurrence of the velocity, and this remaining term is actually responsible for dissipation, so that we are not having any oscillations into our final solution. Okay, now remember one thing: when you will be substituting this particular velocity formulation into your discretized form of continuity equation. Okay, so discretized form of continuity equation requires values of velocity at the faces. So once you will be substituting over there, you will be finally finding that this order of pressure will be increasing one more. So in our continuity equation, we will be getting nothing but fourth order pressure gradient terms. Okay, so fourth order pressure gradient terms will be appearing in our pressure correction equations once we will be using this particular formulation. However, we will be finding that remaining procedure will remain almost same. Okay, so this point is clear, how we are actually treating the pressure, how we are treating this particular issue of checkerboard pressure field with the collocated grid.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
I have two questions. Why not taking a second order pressure gradient, and the other is that is this term tend to zero? Is this term? Because
No.
otherwise this will create very difference.
Yeah,
Like
so
issue of
basically, if
U.
you see this particular term, whatever the second term I have written, it will be always of small magnitude. Okay, so it will be of small magnitude in comparison to actual gradient term, because actual gradient will be actually very large over here in the highly oscillating pressure field, and this term will be having very small magnitude. So the only role it will play, because you can see it is having some negative sign, so because of this high pressure gradient, it will try to create some large velocity value at the face. So that large velocity value, it should not create some oscillation. So in order to dissipate its effect, actually this negative term is added. Okay, so over here what I am trying to do, considering the time limitation, I am only explaining you one specific method of dealing with this particular issue. However, there are few more techniques available in the literature which can be actually employed on collocated grid to treat the checkerboard pressure problem. However, this is one which is actually very popular and most widely used. So that's why I have chosen this one in this particular lecture. Okay.
And sir, why not taking the second order of pressure gradient?
Yeah, so that is something what I told you, that I am not including over here the mathematics behind obtaining this expression. So this expression actually directly I am giving you that how we can employ this one. Okay, so once we go into the mathematical details, how it is derived, then actually we can come to know the reason behind this third order pressure gradient. Okay, so basically the overall idea is we are trying to use some order of the pressure gradient which will give us basically non-zero value of the pressure gradient. Okay, so that we are trying to do.
Okay, sir.
Then comes, so this is something which I have explained on structured grid. Now this particular equation which I have given over here for phase velocity, it is applicable for structured grid. However, when we have to couple this for the unstructured grid, so how to do? Okay, so for doing so, let us consider that I have some unstructured mesh like this, and this is my common phase where P and A are the node points, and this distance from P to A is delta zeta. This is common phase, and outward normal vector is n vector over here. Okay, so now the value of this velocity we have got as UP plus UE by 2 plus 1 by 2. Now one important thing I am doing, earlier it was only AP by AP, so I am multiplying this term delta x over here. Okay, so I have multiplied with delta x. If I have multiplied with delta x over here, I have to divide with delta x also. Okay, similar thing I have done over here. So here also I have multiplied with delta x, and here also multiplied with delta x. Now if you see specifically this particular term PW minus PE, so PW minus PE is nothing but del P by del X at point P. If What will be del P by del X at point P? That will be nothing but PW, PE minus PW divided by delta X. So what I can do, once I have divided it with delta X, I can write this term as nothing but minus gradient of P. Can I write it like this? Minus gradient of P at point P. Is this point clear? How I am writing this term PW minus PE once I divided with delta X, how I am writing it as gradient of P at point P. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Similarly,
Yes, sir.
second term I can write this PP minus PEE. This second term I can write as gradient of P at node E. Okay. Now on structured grid, if I have some structured grid and AP is our face area and delta X is the distance. So on that structured grid, this face area by delta X will be becoming nothing but volume. Okay. So under that condition, I can write, sorry, earlier I made a mistake. So this I have to write as 2 delta X, because between node E and W, we are having distance as 2 delta X. And over here, I have given you the mathematical form for gradients of P at P and gradient of P at E. Okay. Now, this multiplication of AP with delta X will be becoming nothing but volume. So I have written now in the vector notation, in place of UP plus UE by 2, which were the component of velocity in X direction, and for one dimensional problem on Cartesian grid, this velocity UP was representing normal velocity to the face. So if I have to write in the generalized form, I can write it U vector at node P plus U vector at node A divided by 2, and because this vector we have to consider along the normal direction in order to find out the normal velocity. So that's why dot product I am taking with the normal vector. So is this point clear how I have written this general form?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then we are having second term as half AP into delta X. So AP into delta X will become delta VP and A into delta X will become delta VA, and this will be becoming PP minus PE. And now we are moving in particular, this line joining between the two is delta zeta. So I can write it as delta zeta. Okay. Minus half of delta VP by AP, gradient of P at point P, plus delta VA by AA into gradient of P at point A. And if you recall, nothing but when we are estimating these gradients, we are estimating these gradients in the nodes, in the line joining these nodes. So direction vector along that is actually E zeta. Okay. Now this N and E zeta is something which we have earlier derived from the geometric computations. Okay. So question comes, how to find out gradient of P? So for finding out gradient of P, once again, we can use nothing but least square gradient approximation. Okay. So this equation is clear. So
Yes, sir.
this particular equation can be used on unstructured grids for doing pressure velocity coupling, and we know simply that in our simple algorithm U equal to U star plus U dash, P equal to P star plus P dash. So like that, if I calculate the relation between dashed parameters, so I can write U dash E will be equal to dE times P dash P minus P dash E, and my equation will be a pressure correction equation. After substituting all these into our continuity equation, we will be finding AP PP dash equal to summation A and B P dash and B plus B dash. And these are the values of coefficients in our discretized continuity equation. Okay. So now this is nothing but a generalized procedure which I have given over here, and the simple algorithm, Piso algorithm, and all other simpler works in a similar way as I have described for the structured meshes. Okay, so the only difference comes in estimation of the phase velocity. So the phase velocity, while we are estimating, we are considering some higher order pressure gradient term in our interpolation scheme. Okay. So till this point, it is clear.
So, so in this in the structured meshes, we generally uses that second order differencing scheme, right?
Yes.
So in this case, how we are relating that point? Uh, I mean, third order, we are using the pressure gradient as third order, right? For the approximation purpose.
Yeah, basically what
So,
we are using third order pressure gradient term. Okay.
okay,
And
sir.
order
Yeah.
of accuracy is also like something which we can make equivalent Taylor series approximation, and from there we can find. But as you can see, when we are having uniform mesh, and we are using four number of participation from four number of grid points, so I can simply write that my algebraic expression is something like a plus bx plus cx square plus dx cube. Okay, so it means the order of accuracy is also actually over here 4. So we are having fourth order accurate discretization scheme. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, with this, our discussion on estimation of fluid flow and heat transfer problems on unstructured meshes is over. Let us now focus on one more very important topic, which we have to consider, particularly when we are doing the treatment of complex domains using finite difference method. Okay, so this is also one very popular technique which is used in uh, which is used by CFD community. So I thought it to discuss with you. Okay, so from here, from this portion onwards, whatever things we are discussing, it is not the case that it is not applicable for finite volume method. It is applicable for any type of discretization, finite difference, finite volume, and finite difference. But mainly the motivation behind doing this particular transformation is actually finite difference method. So let me explain how. So what I am having some airfoil structure, and this airfoil structure is actually placed in some purely rectangular grid. So we know that in case of finite difference method, we require some structured arrangement. Okay, so we require some structured arrangement. If we are not having structured arrangement, then we cannot apply finite difference method, because in finite difference method we move in some particular special sequence, and we actually at different these node points which are arranged in some structured manner, we try to provide the finite difference approximations of our difference of our derivative terms, and then we try to obtain the algebraic set of equations. Okay, so first requirement of our finite difference approximation is that we should have structured arrangement, and second requirement is that if we are having uniform mesh, then on uniform mesh actually our order of accuracy will be higher. Okay, so order of accuracy on finite difference approximation will be actually higher. Okay, so considering these two requirements, that we want to have uniform structured arrangement, if we want to apply the finite difference method, we are considering that we are having some airfoil arrangement, and this airfoil arrangement is actually placed in some rectangular grid. And now if we try to see, in case of finite difference method, we are not worried about what is happening in this intermediate space. We are not at all concerned about that. Only we are concerned about values at these points. Okay, so if we are using this aerofoil structure on purely rectangular grid, I will be finding that some of the grid points are actually lying in between this solid geometry. Okay, so now question comes, if I have to use this particular node, and at this point if I have to do some estimations obviously I will be having requirement of this node, this node, all the neighboring nodes, okay, depending upon the order of accuracy of the scheme. So if I have to use this node, I am not at all knowing the value of parameters, because all these nodes are actually lying within our solid boundary. Okay. Another important point we can consider, if we have to maintain uniform structured arrangement. Uniform means in x direction, every grid point is actually every grid spacing is same. Similarly, in y direction, every grid spacing is same. So in each direction, we are considering uniform arrangement. Okay. So now if we go with this uniform arrangement, in order to use this particular boundary of this particular solid boundary into our solution, we are not having any grid point. So hardly there is one or two grid point which is actually lying on the boundary. Apart from that, we are not having any grid point which is actually lying on this boundary. Okay. So under this condition, what will be happening when we will be doing the computations? First thing is, this solid boundary will not be treated properly, and some of the nodes inside the solid will be lying inside the solid boundary, which will be for which we will not be able to exactly estimate the values of parameters. Okay, so these are some of the computational challenges of dealing with the complex geometries by using uniform structured mesh, particularly when we are dealing with the finite difference method. So is this point clear, whatever I have explained?
Yes, sir.
So to avoid this, what we can do, we can go for kind of body fitted mesh. Okay. So let us consider that this is our Cartesian coordinate system XY, but we have not done over here, we have not created some structured Cartesian mesh, rather we have created some body fitted mesh. So if I am using this body fitted mesh arrangement, under this body fitted mesh, you will be finding that our spacing between different parameters is not constant. Okay. And moreover, we are having some curved boundaries, so there is no proper structure. So over here, now difficulty comes that how to employ the discretization scheme. Okay. So what we do over here, this is our XY system. In the XY system, we have used some body fitted mesh. So this particular type of plane where we have used some body fitted mesh, which has helped us in locating the node points on the solid boundary. So it means now I can take care of solid boundary into my numerical solution, but challenge comes that it is not in some structured fashion, so that I can apply finite difference scheme. Okay. So we will be taking some new coordinate system where I am considering that eta lines are actually constant, eta lines are along the shape of the body. For example, all these lines are representing some different values of eta. For example, for this solid boundary, we are having some value eta 1, and for this entire line, this eta 1 is constant. For another line, we are having some value eta 2, and this eta 2 is actually overall constant. Similarly, these lines I am considering as nothing but my zeta lines. Okay. And this zeta is actually constant. So now what I will do, in our physical plane, we have considered some body fitted mesh, which is helping us in taking care of the solid boundary. But in order to enable the use of finite difference method, we have to convert this particular physical grid into some structured uniform grid. Okay. So for that purpose, what we will be doing, we will be doing some grid transformations. Okay. So we will be doing some grid transformations. So the meaning of grid transformation is, whatever the grid I have created in XY plane, this grid I will be creating, converting into zeta eta plane, and over here it is actually not in following some specific structure, rather over here it is actually a body fitted. So this particular body fitted, I will be using some transformation function. I will be using some transformation function in such a way so that after this transformation function, it is becoming a structured grid. It is becoming a structured grid in zeta eta plane. Okay, and the resulting structured grid in zeta eta plane we call as nothing but our grid in computational plane. Okay, so there is some transformation involved. What is that transformation? How that transformation is to be done, that we will try to see subsequently. But at the moment I have told you that we have done some transformation over here in such a fashion so that we are getting some uniform structured mesh in zeta eta plane. Okay, and now over here we are having very like good mapping from physical plane to computational plane in such a fashion. I have indicated over here with some points. You can see this A, B, and C are some neighboring points. Now, while I will be doing this transformation from XY plane to zeta eta plane, in my zeta eta plane, these are say point A, B, and C. So if these are point A, B, and C, you can see these A, B points are actually lying across the boundary. So I can call this in zeta eta plane, this bottom wall is referring to nothing but one face of the aerofoil. Okay. And I have like a nice mapping of these points A, B, C on zeta eta plane. And the spacing delta zeta and delta eta is actually constant over here. So how to obtain this grid mathematically, that we will try to see subsequently. But now question comes that once we shift ourselves from physical plane to computational plane, now what we have to do, we are having our governing equations known on physical plane, but we have to perform all the computations on computational plane. So that's why first thing we have to do is we have to convert our governing equations we have to transform governing equations from physical plane to computational plane. So till this point it is clear?
Yes, sir.
So now let us try to see first what are the procedures for transformation of governing equations. Okay, so I am explaining these transformations for two-dimensional situation, and its extension in the three-dimension will be actually very easy and similar. Okay, so I am considering that, say I have some transformation function zeta equal to zeta of xy comma t and eta equal to eta xy comma t, where this xy is our physical plane, coordinates in the physical plane, independent parameters in physical plane, xyt, and zeta eta tau are our coordinates, zeta and eta are coordinates, and tau is time in our computational plane. Okay, now tau will be nothing but function of t. So for majority of the situations, because for time we are not having any difference in the computational and the physical plane, so tau will be equal to t only. Okay, so the major difference will come in zeta eta and xy transformations. Okay, so for these functions over here, we may have some specific functional form, specific analytical functional form. Okay, so once we are having some specific analytical functional form, obviously we will be easily able to calculate their transformations. And sometimes we are having, in place of analytical functional form, we are having some numerical functions also, which actually results in transformation from one plane to another plane. So what are the different functions or specific forms available, that we will try to see subsequently. So at the moment, let us now generalize the procedure, considering that we have shifted from xy plane to zeta eta plane. We are having governing equations known in xy plane. Now we need to convert these governing equations into zeta eta plane. Okay, so now for fluid flow and heat transfer problems, what we are having continuity, momentum, and energy equations. And if we see, in case of continuity and momentum and temperature equation, we have to find out del by del x derivative, del by del y derivative, and in momentum equations, along with the viscous term, we have to also calculate del square by del x square, del square by del y square, and we have to also estimate del square by del x del y. Okay, so we will be having different parameters, say phi is some parameter, u velocity, v velocity, temperature, like that. But these are the different derivatives which we need to calculate. So what I am trying to do over here, I am trying to find out some transformations for different parameters. Okay, so let us do this with the help of some chain rule. So we are saying that del by del x, by considering y comma t as fixed parameters, I can write it as nothing but del by del zeta by fixing eta and tau into del zeta by del x by fixing y and t, plus del by del eta into del eta by del x plus del by del tau into del tau by del x. So this equation is clear. This is very, very simple equation from the mathematics by applying the chain rule. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, as I told you that tau is not function of xy and neither it is function of zeta eta, because tau is nothing but it represents time, and time is not having any dependence on the spatial parameter. So that's why this tau term del tau by del x I can make equal to 0, and I'll be finding del by del x as nothing but del by del zeta into del zeta by del x plus del by del eta into del eta by del y. Okay. Similarly, I can write del by del y as del by del zeta by del y into del by del eta into del eta by del y. So it means if I have some parameter del u by del x, that del u by del x in zeta eta plane will become del u by del zeta into del zeta by del x plus del u by del eta into del eta by del x. Now, how to find out this del zeta by del x and del eta by del x? That is something which we will be knowing once we know the specific functional form which we have used for transformation of the coordinates from physical plane to the computational plane. Okay. Now, similarly, I have applied this chain rule for finding out del by del t. So if I do it for del by del t, it will be becoming del by del epsilon, del by del zeta into del zeta by del t, del by del eta by del t, then del by del tau into d tau by dt, because tau is only a function of t. So that's why this del tau by del t, I can write d tau by t, and generally tau is considered as equal to t. So this will be majority of the time it will be becoming actually equal to 0 only. Okay. Sorry, equal to 1 only. Okay. So this is the transformation for temporal terms. Now in this equation, these quantities del zeta by del x, del eta by del x, del eta by del y, del zeta by del y, so and del zeta by del t, del eta by del t, and d tau by dt, all these encircled quantities are nothing but called as metrics. These are called as metrics. Okay, so all these quantities which we are having over here, these are called as nothing but metrics. Okay, so in this slide we have seen that how to do the first order transformations, but we are having some second order transformations also. So for doing second order transformations, what I have done, first I have considered that A is equal to our first order transformation of del by del x is nothing but A. Now if I have to find out del square by del x square, then I'll be using simply as del A by del x. So I'll be using del by del x of all these quantities. If I do del by del x, I am not going into the details. You can refer to the through these slides, but these are very easy computations. You will be finding this term as independent of x and y. However, over here, you will be finding some mixed derivative, which is involving both the coordinate systems, x and zeta, and here it is involving x and eta. So for like avoiding these, we will be first finding out the value of this b, which is del square by del x del zeta. I can write it as del by del x of del by del zeta. So this is my b, Now B, I can replace it with del square by del zeta square into del zeta by del x plus del square by del zeta into del eta by del x. Okay, so I can replace this single term, this transformation. Similarly, this C I can replace with this entire term. Okay, so by substituting the values of B and C, I'll be finding del square by del x square, something like this. This is a very long expression for this. Okay, this point is clear how we have obtained del square by del x square. It is very simple, nothing but we are just applying the chain rule and our partial derivative formulations. Okay, shall I move to next slide?
Yes, sir.
Then similarly, in order to find out del square by del y square also, I have considered d equal to del by del y and then del d by del y, like we have calculated del square by del x square. So here we will be having some E and F which are involving actually mixed coordinate system. So we will be then avoiding this E and F, and this will be our y term. Then comes computations of mixed derivative del square by del x del y. So when we will be calculating del square by del x del y, we will be finding once again B and C are appearing over here. So B and C already we have calculated. If we substitute, we will be getting this term over here. Okay, so the point is, when we are changing our equations from one coordinate system to another coordinate system for single term, for example, if I have to calculate del square u by del x del y, for this single term I will be getting so many number of terms. So it means our governing equations will be getting actually so much complicated over here. Okay, so we will be getting very, not complicated, I should say, we will be getting large number of terms into our governing equations when we will be doing these coordinate transformations. Okay, now let us try to see. So this is something when we have considered that our direct transformation functions are known, means zeta is given as function of x and y and eta is given as function of x and y. These are called as direct transformation functions. Sometimes you may find a situation that in place of direct transformation functions, inverse transformation functions are given, that x equal to x of zeta eta tau, y equal to y of zeta eta tau, and t equal to t of tau. So this type of transformation where we want to move from x to zeta eta, but it is given in inverse way. So this function is called as inverse transformation function. Okay, so while we are having inverse transformation functions, under this condition, how to convert our equations? For that, we will be taking help of any parameter u. So if I have any parameter u in xy coordinate system, I can write it as du equal to, using my total differential of u, I can write total differential of u using chain rule as del u by del x into dx plus del u by del y into dy. Okay, now if this du I differentiate with zeta, so I can write del u by del zeta into del u by del x and del x by del zeta. Similarly, del u by del y into del y by del zeta. So first I have differentiated this with zeta, and second time I have differentiated with it eta. So now we are having actually two equations, and we are interested in finding out the values of del x by del zeta and we are interested in finding out the values of del u by del x and del u by del y. So these are the values which we want to transform from this xy coordinate system to zeta eta system. Okay, so what I can do over here, I have two equations, I have two unknowns, so I can apply over here Cramer's rule. If I apply Cramer's rule, can I write del u by del x like this? After using Cramer's rule, what will be del u by del x? It will be nothing but, in the denominator, I will be having this del x by del zeta, del y by del zeta, del x by del eta, del y by del eta, its determinant. And in the numerator, when I am estimating del u by del x, the coefficients of del u by del y will be as it is. So that is del y by del zeta, del y by del eta. and for coefficient of del x by del zeta, we have to use this right hand side. So that is del u by del zeta and del u by del eta. This point is clear?
Yes, sir.
Now the determinant which we are having in the denominator, that is particularly called as nothing but Jacobian. Okay, so Jacobian is equal to del xy del zeta y, so which represents the actually transformation between xy and zeta eta plane. That is called as, this bottom determinant is called as actually Jacobian. This determinant of the denominator is called as actually Jacobian J. So if I write this entire bottom term as J, I can write del u by del x as 1 by J times del u by del zeta into del y by del eta minus del u by del eta into del y by del zeta. So it means this del u by del x I can write using this Jacobian operator and use in this fashion. Okay. Similarly, I can write del u by del y using the Kramer rule, and this is how I can write this one. And in the general formulation, the way I have done it for u variable, I can do it for V, I can do it for W, pressure, temperature, any other variable. Okay. So that's why this del by del x in terms of Jacobian, I can generalize it like this. Okay. Now the procedure over here which I have defined, it is actually considering some parameter u. There is another way of finding out this particular equation, and that another way is based on this particular formulation. First, we are considering that zeta and eta are known. Then I'll be writing d zeta and d eta using chain rule like this. And this I can write in the form of matrices. Then if I know x and y inverse functions, then I can write dx and dy like this using chain rule. And then this dx and dy equations I can write over here. Now, if you see, from here I can write that d zeta and d eta from this second equation, this particular inverse formulation, I can write d zeta and d eta is nothing but equal to inverse of this matrix del x by del zeta, del x by del eta, del y by del zeta, del y by del eta inverse into dx dy. Okay. Now, this particular inverse is nothing but equivalent to this matrix over here, because this equation, say this is my equation A, if I compare this equation with equation B, I will be finding that this inverse matrix is equal to this matrix. Okay. So now this particular formulation over here is nothing but relating our direct transformation functions with the inverse transformation function. So any of one is known, we can actually relate the two. Now, considering these transformations, I can write that del zeta by del x into del zeta by del x, del zeta by del y, and del eta by del x and del eta by del y will be becoming nothing but equal to, this will be becoming nothing but equal to, from here I will be using this transformation and I can write it something like this. And finally, if you compare, you will be finding that even using this general transformation in terms of inverse and direct functions, we will be finding final form of equation something like this, which we have derived earlier. Okay, so you can easily go through these mathematical details. These are not that much complex. We are now running out of time. I will try to complete this lecture over here only, and in the next lecture we will try to see some of the examples that how we can actually, what type of direct or inverse functions we can employ in order to convert our grid structure from one coordinate system to another coordinate system. Okay, so for that, if you want to just give a thought, I have taken one example. So in this one xy coordinate system, I am having this mesh structure as compressed structure, where near the wall I am having very fine meshes and away from the wall I am having basically coarse meshes. If I have to convert this into uniform structured mesh, the task given to you is, you please try to find out what will be transformation function from zeta in terms of x and y in order to obtain or convert this particular grid structure into this uniform structured arrangement. Okay, so please give a thought to find out the specific functional form in order to achieve this transformation. So these examples specifically I will try to take up in the next lecture. Now I will stop at this point.